All right, muted.
Oh shoot, I guess I gotta go all the way back. Hold on. I hope they're able to cut that part out because it's already recorded. Alrighty, good luck everybody, and thanks again for being here. Hello everyone, welcome in. I'm just gonna give folks a couple seconds to settle their audio and video preferences. We're excited to have you guys here. Welcome, welcome, welcome. From our team here at ACRO, I want to warmly welcome everybody to our May Edge user group. We're really excited to have you guys here. And before we jump in, I'm just going to cover a few technical details in case you haven't joined us before on an ACRO webinar in the past. So we use Zoom webinar, which is very similar to Zoom meeting, except for that your cameras and mics are disabled by default. To interact with one another or with our presenters, you have two primary options. For discussion and general comments, you can use our chat button. Please note that this does default to chatting only to the hosts and panelists, meaning that only we will see your messages. But if you want everyone to see it, please make sure that you're selecting everyone from the two drop-down menu. If you have a question, please use our Q&A button. You can ask questions anonymously and can view and comment on existing questions. You can also ask questions at any time, but please note that all of our questions, or all of your questions rather, will be answered at the end of the presentation, and we've made sure to leave plenty of time for you. And now, without further ado, I'd like to pass the mic over to one of our hosts, Jasmine. Jasmine, welcome in and thank you for being here.
Thank you, Christina. Hello, everyone. Greetings from a very overcast Los Angeles. Just happy to be here on our monthly Edge user group. My name is Jasmine Saidi Keenard. I'm president and CEO of the Academic Credentials Evaluation Institute. We're based in Los Angeles, California, and I have the honor and privilege to serve as chair of the International Education Standards Council. And joining me today are some of our members. We have Nancy Katz, Emily Tsay, Robert Watkins, and Shelby Curley. And we have a great agenda set up for you. But here on this page, you will see the complete representation of our members that have been with the ISC. We have two new members, Shelby Curley and Leslie Clausen-Eicher. And we have our fellows, Rebecca Jacob and Haley Klimenog. And yeah, it's a great group of people, and it's just been a delight to be working with them and going through all the questions that we received from our very supportive Edge user groups. Just like a little bit of a background about what the ESC does is that we're composed of representatives from public and private universities, as well as credential evaluation agencies. The members of the IESC are all volunteers, and we bring with us extensive experience in the field of credential evaluation, international admissions, and research. The role of the IESC is to conduct research, collect and review the information, and prepare and approve new recommendations, which is the credential advice that you see in EDGE. And it also includes our advice on grade conversion scales. The credential comparabilities that you see posted on country profiles of EDGE are based on majority consensus among the members of the IESC. So we vote on our credential advice. And if we have questions, we kick it back and we do more research and we come back. We meet once every 2 weeks. And we address the questions that you bring to our attention and other issues that we become aware of as developments happen within the education systems around the world. So with that said, I am now going to pass the mic on to Drew, who will go through the agenda for us for today. Thank you.
Hey, thanks, Jasmine. So I want to, again, just welcome everyone in for today, and wanted to start out by just understanding who's with us. I'm going to start with a quick poll. For those of you that have been with us, you might be familiar with this one, but we just want to know, are you an Edge subscriber? For those of you that aren't, don't forget, you can get a free trial by going over to our Edge website, www.acro.org/edge, and look for About Edge. There's a link right there where you can sign up for a free trial, see if it's right for you. Have you been with us before? Is this your first group? And what segment are you representing today? Are you with an institution, an evaluation agency, some representative from a government or a ministry, with a law firm? Let me know.
That was awesome. That sounded like an infomercial. I'm gonna leave the the poll open for just about another 15 seconds. It looks like about 86% of you guys have participated. Thank you guys so much for your engagement. And we'll go ahead and close the poll in just a second and share these results momentarily.
I see that the host and panelists cannot vote, so this truly is only those of you that are joining us today.
Yes, all right, perfect. So we're gonna end the poll. Thank you to 91% of you, that's amazing. And we're gonna share those results.
Hey, welcome all of you. We're going to have some really good updates for you. We've got a lot going on with grading scales, actually. So pay attention, even if you're familiar with the countries. There might be some little tweaks in there that are going to be useful for you. Many of you have been with us before, and for those of you that are coming for the first time, welcome. This is a great way that you can connect with the IESC and really understand the rationale behind some of these decisions and these deliberations that are taking place. And who do you represent? We've got a lot of folks here, about 84% from an institution, a strong representation from evaluation agencies today, and government representatives as well. Thank all of you for joining us. Today, we're going to go up to the Great White North in Canada, talk about 4-year and honors bachelor's degrees. There's a lot of provinces. There's a lot to cover there. We're going to try to break it down for you a little bit. We'll head down, sticking over there on the Western Hemisphere, head down to Panama and talk about some edits that have been made to the grading scale, some research that we've done that's been able to really improve that for you. You're going to get to hear from one of the newest members of the IESC. Shelby will be speaking on that. In Sri Lanka, we understand that you need to understand the relationship between that A and that O level grading scale a little bit more clearly. We've got some advice for you. And in Nigeria, the National Examinations Council, the NICO Senior School Certificate. This is something that has not been an EDGE as a credential, but now we have advice for you if you've ever encountered this credential before. We reference it in the overview and talk about NICO, but now we've got advice for you along with some information. And going down to Brazil, making sure we're going to address the Título de Cirurgia Dentista. I am sorry to any Brazilians or Portuguese speakers that are here with me today. Not my forte. But we'll talk on a few of the other events that we've got available. We've got the BW seminar. Applications are currently open on NAFSA and ACRO sites. We'll give you more information later. The Tech and Transfer Summit is virtually going to be coming right to your screen in mid-July. And we'll talk a little bit more about some collaboration between ACRO and AICE and the Gloria Nathanson Fund for Research and International Education. Without further ado, let's get to the content. It's hot out here. I wish it were colder. Nancy, can you take me up north to Canada?
Sure, but we'll start in Chicago, and it's also an overcast day here in Chicago and muggy. So, hello, my name is Nancy Katz. I'm the Director of Evaluation Service Incorporated in Chicago, Illinois. And I'm going to talk about Canada. Now, I have to tell you, I'm from Detroit originally, so Canada is just a suburb of Detroit. So, I'm not to offend any Canadians. It's just how we were raised. Okay. We had a question from an EDGE user, and the question was that we have come across many 4-year bachelor's degrees which are not the honors type. let me know. I was wondering if you would agree about this phenomenon. So we looked into this and we did discover, we're going to talk about all provinces other than Quebec. Quebec has a very different educational system. So whatever I'm going to say applies to all other provinces, but it does not apply to Quebec. We did discover there are 4-year degrees. Some provinces no longer have a 3-year degree. They only have 4-year degrees, of which they are either a Bachelor of Arts, Science, Commerce, Mathematics, etc., or a Bachelor of Arts, Science, Commerce, Mathematics, etc., honors. The 4-year degrees in all the provinces, once again, excluding Quebec, must have a minimum of 120 credits. An honors degree in most of these provinces are additional credits, usually about 134, but they vary in range. These are all equivalent to US bachelor's degrees. We highly recommend that you obtain transcripts for any degree that you're not sure about. Many of the older bachelor's degrees from Canada may just say Bachelor of Arts, Science, Commerce, etc., and they don't, older meaning pre-2000s, let's say, even pre-2005. And you may not, at the time, the province may have still offered a 3-year bachelor's degree. So you really need to get the transcripts to determine if it was a 90 credit program or a 120 credit program. For example, I just had something from Brock University, which is in the province of Ontario. This individual completed 2 years of study and they transferred from a CEGEP program in Quebec. Talk about trying to figure out these credits. And in the end, we were able, I spoke with them at Brock. They did have 120 credits. They did complete their 4-year honors degree of 120 credits. Now, this was a degree completed in 2006. So it was 120 credits, Canadian credits, which are pretty much the exact same as a US credit. So we are changing, in the process of changing the write-up for the 4-year degree, for the bachelor's degrees through all provinces, once again, excluding Quebec, to indicate that that the bachelor's degree is either 4 years, it's either a bachelor degree or bachelor's degree honors, but it must have a minimum of 120 passing credits. I hope that may have explained things to you. We will tackle Quebec in the future. We don't believe that there are any changes for Quebec at this time, but it was easier for us to go province by province by province in all the English-speaking provinces and get these answers and to speak to the universities very freely. They were very helpful. The good thing about evaluating documents from Canada, for the most part, you can pick up the phone, you can call the department, you can call the records office. You may not be able to get information about a specific student, but you can always ask general questions about the degree program that your student completed. So that's what I have to say about the 4-year bachelor's degrees, 4-year bachelor honors degrees in the country of Canada. And I am going to pass it along to Shelby, who's going to discuss grading scales in Panama. Welcome, Shelby.
Thank you so much, Nancy. Hello, everybody. My name is Shelby Kearley, and I am the Senior Global Transcript Evaluator for Adtalem Global Education. I will be talking to you today about the updates that we have made to the grading scale for Panama. We received a question from a user who wanted to know where were the US equivalencies. So we took this opportunity to take a little bit of a deep dive into grading scales, current grading scales at the secondary and post-secondary levels in Panama. So we have added a column for the indigenous descriptors. Because if you're like me, you may not remember that fracaso is a failing grade in Panama, because I don't ever see that word anywhere except Panama. So we've added that column, and we've also added a column for the suggested US equivalents. Then we also did a little bit of extra information onto the grading page There is a new table for terms that you will see typically from transcripts from Universidad de Panama that may be useful to you as you're trying to determine grading equivalencies. So we've added that table as well. And finally, the last edit that we have made on that scale is there was some incorrect sourcing on the honors tables that are below the post-secondary grading scale. So we've edited those, and I did also do some research to confirm that those are still, in fact, the correct honors grading scales. So the information that's on that page now for you is updated. And at this point, I will go ahead and turn the floor to Jasmine.
Thank you so much, Shelby. And now we'll move on to grading scales for Sri Lanka. And this was brought to our attention by an EDGE user who mentioned that the current grading scale we have available for Sri Lanka does not match the grading scales available on the O-level and the A-level, excuse me, documents. And they've kindly provided us with redacted samples of the two documents, which is what we really love and appreciate. So whenever you have questions about a particular credential, if you have a credential at hand, please remove all the sensitive information and share that with us, because then we have a tangible document that we can base the research on. So we took the charge and we have prepared the following grading scale that was recently approved and is posted on EDGE Sri Lanka. So we have two scales. One is for the General Certificate of Education, ordinary level. This is the exam that is conducted in Sri Lanka on completion of senior secondary education that ends at grade 11. And these are the grades. So you see the indigenous grade column, the indigenous grade percentages, and then the English descriptor and our suggested US equivalents. Next, we have the grading scale for the Sri Lankan General Certificate of Education Advanced Level, or A level. And this is an exam that is completed. It's still a secondary, it's pre-university, it's offered at their grade 13, which if you refer to the overview and the credential advice in EDGE is really our grade 12, because they start at age 5, which we discount toward kindergarten. So moving to this A level, what we have again is the indigenous letter grade, the percentage, the descriptor, and the suggested US equivalence. What is to be noted here is that when you scroll down under the category, the grade that says S, it also has a descriptor ordinary pass, but it gives it we have recognized it as a fail, but we have an asterisk there. And what this means is that on the A-level standard, this person did not meet what is sufficient to be considered a pass, but they have met a pass equivalent on an O level or the ordinary level examination. So if someone you see on their document that is a GC A level, you see this ordinary pass mentioned with the letter grade of S, you know that it's not an A level subject, but you can count it toward the O levels. I think that pretty much covers this. This went into effect as of 2002. So we definitely needed to upgrade this information. And we hope that this will be helpful. And time for me to pass this on to Emily.
Hello, everyone. So the next question we received had to do with the Senior School Certificate from NICO, or the National Examinations Council in Nigeria. And the question was that the person could not find this particular credential in EDGE. We did list the Senior School Certificate, but it was not from NICO. It was actually from the West African Examinations Council, or WIAC. And WIAC offers this certificate or a set of examinations to 5 countries in West Africa, being Ghana, Gambia, Liberia, Sierra Leone, and Nigeria, of course. And what happened was that in 1999, the government decided to create its own National Examinations Council as an alternative, to offer its own senior school certificate as an alternative to students in Nigeria. When this was announced, WIAC rebranded its own senior school certificate as the WASSC, or West African Senior School Certificate, so that it was clear which exam came from whom. At the end of the day, both examinations or versions represent a total of 12 years of elementary and secondary education. So it represents the end of the senior secondary education cycle. So for both, we give an equivalency of completion of senior high school in the United States. And so now NICO is listed in EDGE. On to the next slide. Another thing we also want to bring to your attention is that the grading scale is the same for both examination boards. So it goes from A1 through F9, as you can see on the slide here. Students have to sit for a minimum of 8 subjects. And passing grade, as far as the certificate is concerned, the senior school certificate from either board, is A1 through E8. However, that said, in order to be considered eligible for university entry, one must have a minimum of 5 credit passes. To achieve that, they have to have a grade between A1 and C6 instead. So there is that distinction. Luckily for students, they can combine those credit passes from either exam, from either WIAC or NICO, to meet the minimum 5 if needed. And there we have NICO. You'll find it on EDGE now. Thank you. Oh, and on to Robert, I'm sorry, for Brazil.
Thank you, Emily. This one, very quickly, it was pretty simple in the sense that it was another one of those, oh my God moments. We somehow forgot the credential entry for dentists in Brazil. We had the doctors, Medico, but we didn't have one for dentists. Sometimes we'll combine those when they're the same number of years. Sometimes even combining yet a third one with veterinary medicine. In this instance, I just did a separate one, the Título de Cirurgião Dentista, that it's awarded after 4 to 5 years of post-secondary studies. It's interesting. We can't pin that down any better. I wish we could. I hate 4 to 5. I prefer 4 or 5. I did a couple of I've looked at a couple of these that one was from the 90s. One was the first decade of this century. Both were clearly 4 years. But then Shelby found some in her backlog, her archive, that included 5-year ones. And it seems that around 2010, and that's the best I can do for you, around 2010, Brazil changed the curriculum for dentists from 4 years to 5, because now they seem to be 5, those after 2010 seem to be 5 years in duration. So for the moment, we'll leave it at 4 to 5. If we get more detailed information about a seminal moment or a change, watershed moment for change, we'll certainly add that in there. The advice, of course, is going to be similar to what you find with vet med and medicine, and that is that it's comparable to a first professional degree in dentistry, in this case, in the US. Then we add the note, the same note we have for medicine. Only professional authorities in the dental profession, well, changing that word, can determine whether this qualification meets the standards for admission to dental practice in the US. We put that cautionary note in there simply to say that given the nature of board licensure in the United States, that differs just about from anywhere else in the world, with the exception of the Philippines, that we need to put that cautionary note in there. Sometimes a degree from in a profession can lead to immediate practice. Other times it does not. There's more to it. So given the fact that we do have a licensure process in this country, we put that advisory note or that cautionary note in there about dental practice in the United States. Finally, it turns out that this is an entry-level degree, so obviously the entry requirement would be the diploma or the certificado de ensino medio. which is the high school graduation leaving certificate in Brazil. And with that, I need to turn it over to someone from ACRO who's going to handle BW. I'm not sure who that is.
Drew, I'll take it.
Thank you, Julia.
All right, so first highlight an upcoming event that we wanted to talk to you about is the Baden-Württemberg seminar, and to let you know that applications are currently open. This is a seminar that's hosted in person this year. We were virtual last year, so we're very glad to be back and in person, and it's going to be hosted by the University of Ulm. The application date closes, they close on June 20th, so be thinking about this and getting your applications in. We do ask that you also submit with your application a letter of support from your supervisor. This is to just make sure that your supervisor is supporting of you going. So if you're selected, you will be able to go. All costs are basically covered for you, room and board, except for your flight to and from Germany. If you want to ask anybody about that, I believe Emily and Robert both on here have been on that tour. It's just a great way for you to get some awesome professional development, as well as encounter lots of great culture and food and time together. So, oh, and Shelby's gone on it as well, so she can talk about it as well. So the focus is on the German education system. It really is about academic exchange, comparability, etc. So if we can go to the next slide. We give you a timeline so that you have it right in front of you of when you need to do what you need to do. So the applications are posted on both ACRO and NAFSA's websites. As I said, the deadline is June 20th. In June, late June and July, we will then look at the applications and make the selections, and then we will notify applicants in late July. So I hope you apply. It's a great year to think about going to Germany, and it's usually beautiful that time of year. It's going to be in late October. And now I will turn it over to Drew, who will talk to you about tech and transfer.
Thanks, Julia. One thing that I will just mention about the Baden-Württemberg is that if you are considering going, be sure you have enough time on the back end of your passport as well. With some of the restrictions that we're running into right now, you actually have to have a valid passport for more time than you might expect. So just think about that and be sure you have your
Great
passport.
point, Drew. Thanks.
So coming up here in July, we've got the Technology and Transfer Summit. It's a wonderful way where you can access some new ideas and solutions that'll help develop and refine your own programs, policies, and initiatives to impact student and institutional success. I don't know what our registration numbers are at right now, but this is the type of thing that the more you invest on the front end, the more return you get on the back end. Learning those new tips and tricks and skills will really allow you to hone those practices and let you get into the business of what you're really trying to do. Keep it in mind, July 12th, 13th, and 14th from your desk. Coming up next, I think we've got a little bit more to talk about a collaboration. Jasmine, would you talk about this one?
I'd be happy to, Drew. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, we are really excited about this upcoming event that's happening in July. It's in partnership with the Association for International Credential Evaluators and ACRO. Pre-pandemic, we were hosting, that is AIC and ACRO, they were jointly hosting this symposium in conjunction with the annual meeting, where we would tackle a complicated issue such as 3-year degrees, adopting digital platforms for transmission of documents, how to ensure the integrity of those transactions. So what we're tackling this year, and this topic was put on hold because of the pandemic, is the issue of evaluating professional qualifications in law and medicine from around the world. The symposium follows the ACRO Institute, which will do more of the hands-on evaluation, and the symposium will do more the kind of the big thinking. What would be the agreed upon standards that we could adopt so that we could make our lives easier as we tackle these particular credentials. I really encourage evaluators, seasoned evaluators, to really look into this. We want to have input from other organizations and academic institutions. We don't want this to be a discussion kind of done in a vacuum. So the symposium is open to members and non-members of either association. The registration information is up on both the organizations' websites. We look forward to seeing you. Please come. It's Kansas City, known for, Drew, you know what it's known for.
Look, I've been
Sports
wanting some
and-
barbecue ever since like I realized where this was going to be. I have a hankering for it. I really do, and I can't describe it any other way but a hankering. Yeah, Jasmine talked about it. The idea behind this is to get all of the ideas out there. When we have all of the ideas in the room, that's how we're going to be able to have that robust discussion. And so we're looking for those new ideas that no one's ever thought of before. We're looking for the folks that have been staring at this and maybe have found an alternative solution, but we don't know the answer, and we're looking for help figuring that out. So come on. Yeah,
exactly. And Shelby just gave us the most important reason why we should be in Kansas City. The gooey butter, what was it? The gooey butter cookies?
Oh,
something.
gooey butter
Cake.
Gooey
The
butter
gooey
cake.
butter cake.
I think we're going to need to drop that into the Q&A because I'm not sure what gooey butter cake is. Shelby, if anyone has any questions, please do drop those into the Q&A.
I've got recipes.
We're going to get them queued up. But Shelby, what is a gooey butter cake?
Oh, I'm glad that you asked. It is this amazing creation that I'm no longer allowed to eat because it kills me. It's a type of cake that is traditionally made in the St. Louis and Kansas City areas, and it looks kind of flat and dense, but it's full of this rich buttery gooiness, and it's almost kind of like I don't want to say a lava cake because that's not quite right, but it's not quite the texture of a normal cake, and it's just heaven in a spoon. It's just amazing.
There you go. That's the reason we all have to go, because we have to taste it. So there you have it. Thank you. I hope to see everyone there as much as we can. Thank you.
And one other opportunity that is available for everyone out there is the Gloria Nathanson Research Fund for International Education. We always talk about it, how a lot of the folks that participate on these EDGE user group calls love to go down the rabbit hole, love to find the information, and like to share it with folks as well. I really do enjoy how this is a collaborative environment, and people like for the best information to be out there. So we're looking for you. If you have gone through and are interested in providing a full country profile, or there's a particular topic that you really think someone needs to write about. Why has no one written about this yet? It's because all of the moments in your life were leading you to this point where you decided that you were going to be the one to write this. You identified it, and that's what needs to go in there. So moving on to the next thing, we're going to have a few questions. And Christina, could you take over for me here? I've got some noise here in the background. My colleagues are working with me.
A little coffee, of course. Awesome. And now I can't think of anything but gooey butter cake. I'm gonna need that recipe, Shelby. We do have quite a few questions in our Q&A chat, so thank you guys so much for engaging with us. And I wanted to start by reading off Ina's question because it looks like Jasmine answered it in the chat. So for those of you who are watching the recording, you'll be able to not read it, but I'm just going to say it out loud real quick. Ina said, thanks for the tune in, Drew. So for Sri Lanka, has the country left the British pattern behind and nationalized the curriculum? As in, do we know what the medium of instruction is? Thank you. And Jasmine said, Sri Lanka. One of the earlier reforms, early 1970s, was to distance Sri Lanka from the British education system by renaming ordinary O-level and advanced A-level secondary exams and making it more relevant to the country. But faced with popular criticism, they kept the names of ordinary and advanced levels. So I hope that answers your question, Ina. I also saw, Michael, that you put a couple questions in the chat. If you don't mind dropping them in the Q&A, it would be much appreciated, but I'm going to mosey on over to Q's question, who's asking, what's your advice if a student submits both NECO and WAEC, both taken in the same year? Emily, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Yes. So while I'm speaking, I'd be grateful if you could go back to the grading scale slide for NECO. and WASC, that would be great. I think that was slide 11.
Okay.
But don't hold me to it, but it's thereabouts. Yeah,
Cool.
there we go. Perfect. Okay. So the question about WASC versus NICO. So what I can say is that WASC has been around much longer and is considered the gold standard. So you can interpret that as meaning basically it's considered the more rigorous counterpart of NICO. That said, both exams will give students access to university study if they have reached the minimum of 5 credit passes. So if you receive both, and if the student has the minimum 5, including your key subjects like English on WASC, then there is no need to look at the NICO really. But if the student did not achieve the minimum 5, then you can also look at NICO. But again, both, whether on its own or in conjunction, give access to university study. So neither one has to be discounted, but with the understanding that WASC is at the end of the day considered the gold standard and is considered more rigorous. In terms of the grading scale, it's the same grading scale. And I was mentioning that in terms of listing subject passes on the certificate itself, they will list all subjects where a grade between A1 and E8 have been earned. But in terms of eligibility for university entry, for consideration by universities, they have to have a minimum of a credit pass. So that means if they earned a grade between D7 and E8, it won't cut mustard. They need to have between A1 and C6 instead. So that's where the nuances lie, but the grading scale on its own is the same for both examinations. And I think there was maybe 1 or 2 other questions about WASC and NICO. Oh, the other question is there a way to verify them online just like WASC? And yes, indeed. So what I'll do is I will drop the website into the chat. So yes, the scores for NICO can also be verified online, just like WASC.
Emily, can I jump in?
Yes, please.
I value you highly in all your research, and we agree on just about everything, well, except for Cameroon. but on this one, first of all, let me say that you put your finger on it. WAC's been around very much longer, since 1950s, 1952. NICO began in 1999 by the Nigerian government. And almost from its inception, there's been controversy surrounding it and questions. At first, it was not universally accepted in Nigeria. Now it is. And it didn't take very long for that to change, because obviously the government was behind it and mandated that all higher education institutions take it. It is not, however, universally accepted outside of Nigeria. That may or may not be an important point to U.S. Consumers out there. At the NCAA, when I chaired the committee from 2002 to 2010, we refused to accept NICO for freshman qualifiers from Nigeria. I think that's still true. I've been off now 10 years, but I'm not sure. That may still be true. It may or may not be. At UT Austin, we don't take NICO, again, because of the questions that surround this particular examination. Whenever you try to get Education USA officers to commit to this, from Nigeria to commit to this, they roll their eyes and show strange body language, but they don't say anything because they don't want to gainsay it. But I think there's still some questions surrounding NICO. So at UT Austin, we still use only WAC. And I'll give it back to Christine, I guess.
Thanks, Robert.
Thank you guys for your input. I'm actually going to ask you guys to stay on because David has a question, kind of continuing. He's saying, are the WASSC and the WASCE used broadly as the equivalent to seeing each year's transcripts and grades? I'm fairly new to that market, and I'm hearing that high schools don't send transcripts for each grade, only WASSC and WASCE results.
Emily, why don't you go ahead and I'll jump in with sort of an athletics angle.
Perfect, thanks. So For many countries where their secondary education system culminates in a national exam, basically it's those national examination results that are needed, and we wouldn't get year by year transcripts, or we wouldn't require them, because it's really those the official exam board results that matter at the end of the day. So that includes the GCSEs, the A levels that you see in the UK, as well as WASC and the SSC that you see in Nigeria. I understand with university admission, sometimes you do like to see those year by year transcripts to see the subjects that were studied, but at the end of the day, typically speaking, where you have countries validated by national examinations, it's those official national board examinations that matter the most in terms of academic records of study.
And I will simply add, first of all, that I agree 100% with that. We require national exams where that educational system culminates in a national exam. The BOC is important, not the courses that led up to it. The same goes with these two exams that we're talking about. But the NCAA, unfortunately, sort of took a different turn in the last few years. And what they want is to do essentially a unit count, similar to what they do for US athletes. And I'll be brutally honest to you, and I know I'm speaking to a lot of folks out there who could quote me and send this back on, but I'm going to say it anyway. It was the coaches at Division I, Division II institutions that were complaining because they didn't want to wait until June and August to get these national exam results to determine whether or not their prospective student athletes were in fact going to be qualifiers or not. So they pressured the NCAA into using a unit count going back to 9th grade. You can get those transcripts. I've seen a lot of them. Usually the high school in Nigeria will give it out, and it'll be senior 1, 2, and 3, senior 1, senior 2, senior 3. And then you can get one from the junior high that'll say junior 7, 8, and 9. And so you'll need that 9th grade to count those units and to determine if they have the 16 core units and determine the GPA off of that. The problem is that the NCAA guide, which is free and online, often doesn't have grading beyond the exams, the national exams. They don't have the school grades for you to do anything with those transcripts when you get them. But I'll conclude simply by saying that Emily is so right. You really, unless you're forced not to by the NCAA or someone else, you really need those national year leaving exams. If they don't pass that, they don't go on.
Awesome, thank you. And I want to try to stay in order of asked questions, but there is one more regarding the same topic from Todd. Todd, thanks for your question. And he's simply asking, does WASEC and NACO, I don't want to mispronounce it, teach the same or similar syllabi?
Emily, you looked at that closely, I think, didn't you? Because I was bad mouthing Nico, and you did a deeper dive, I think.
Oh, but Emily, you're muted. I'd love to hear what you're saying.
Sorry about that. I was trying to be courteous, and then of course overlook that. Yeah, so it's much like you would see with, for example, the different exam boards in the UK. So there are 5 different exam boards, but they all lead to the GCSE. They have their own syllabi, but in terms of the standards or the level of knowledge, they're supposed to represent the same level of knowledge, but it's not identical syllabi.
Awesome, thank you. And we'll pop back up to Carrie's question. Carrie is asking about admission advice that ACRO has for secondary exams, so benchmark credentials that have been delayed, deferred, as in countries such as Ethiopia and Bangladesh. How do we advise these? Drew, it looks like you're ready, so I'll leave it to you.
Oh yeah. So we actually have a wonderful resource that's available for you out there. It is so what we've been doing in collaboration with Jonathan Cownuen, one of our colleagues, he scours the internet looking for information on what's going on with these exams. And he's providing updates that are happening in real time about education systems around the world. When you go log into Edge and you're looking on the left-hand side, you'll see a collection of news articles, and you can click on the little arrow to cycle through them. But all of those are going to be related to that system's education, or to that country's education system. And all that information is really useful, and we have it in a spreadsheet. Christina, if you would drop the link into the chat for everyone, but you can go there, find a specific country, and then if there's been a substantive update that we can report back to you about a delay that's been going on, about any information about a cancellation or any of those policies, you're going to find those news articles there associated with the profile. And also, when you first log into Edge there on the homepage, right at the bottom, there's going to be a lot of that. So I don't have specific examples or specific advice for you on those. What I would say is, just like I was mentioning earlier when Robert was talking about how he addresses NICO, it's important to develop those institutional standards and to really come up with those policies so that you can apply them fairly across to all the similar instances.
Awesome. Thank you, June. Actually, I'm going to ask you to put the link in the chat if you can, because if I navigate away, it'll stop the screen share.
Absolutely. I will go grab that right now for everybody. It is one of the many free resources that ACRO has on the website, but you can navigate through in our international section and you'll find it all, but I'm going to give you the link to make it easier.
Thanks, Drew, the best. All right, and we have another question from Ying Xiao Li. He's asking, is the Baden-Württemberg seminar open to Canadian institutions as well? Julia, do you want to take a stab at that one?
Sorry about that. I was trying to look for the international exam link. Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, absolutely. We were asked if the BW seminar is open to Canadian institutions as well.
Yes, as long as you're an ACRO or a NAFSA member. It is, you must have membership in either ACRO or NAFSA, but absolutely you can apply.
So easy answer. Thanks, Julia. Then we'll go to Margot's question, who's also asking about an upcoming event. She's saying, will there be any international specific sessions at the tech conference in June?
I can take that one as well. I can't speak for the conference itself. I don't know that the sessions have been listed out, but there will be an international transfer credit workshop that we will be hosting at the Tech and Transfer Conference.
Okay, and I'm reading the second part of Margot's question. She stated, I'm thinking specifically of issues such as best ways that institutions deal with entering and transfer coursework into their student information systems when the foreign institution doesn't list department or course codes on their transcript. So how institutions keep track of transfer course equivalencies, rules that are made for specific courses from those institutions.
Yep, this will be a workshop, so it will go over all that, and it will be virtual. And I think if you go to the Tech and Transfer site, that should be up soon if it's not up yet. But we are planning to do an international transfer credit workshop in conjunction with the Tech and Transfer Summit.
Beautiful. Thank you, Julia. And David, I see that you put butter and powdered sugar. I can't stop thinking about those cakes. So
I sent you the recipe that I use, so you can share it with people if you want.
Thank you. But David,
and so that actually reminds me with the butter. There is more in Kansas City than just barbecue. There's music too. Kansas City has a wonderful blues scene. If that's something, it's something that me and my children have really been getting into during the pandemic, is going to old record shops. And one of the genres that they've really found that they like is big band jazz from, early on, when every kind of little metropolitan area had its own blues scene, and there wasn't really a national distribution except for Nancy there in Chicago was probably one of the big hubs. But just wanted to throw another thing out there, another thing you should check out when you come to Kansas City.
awesome. Thank you. And we're going to wander back over to Emily and possibly Robert, because David also asked, is admissions solely based on the WASSC, WASCE results for most institutions? And then he followed that up by asking, and they don't worry about S1, S2, S3 grades?
I do believe there is also an entrance examination in Nigeria. But in terms of school records, again, it would be those exam results.
That's correct. The Unified Tertiary Matriculation Examination is required by Nigerian universities. And then, of course, they want so many passes on the WASSCE, and they don't care about the individual grades of the individual grade years. I'm staring right now at the admission requirements for the University of Lagos, and that's exactly what they say.
Awesome, thank you. And an anonymous attendee also asked a question. They stated, I have a question about Nigeria, yet at the university level, has anyone heard that University of Lagos is on strike at the moment or any other institutions?
I can sort of answer that. There has been an ongoing strike. I can't tell you exactly when it started. It has caused some disruption to classroom ability to attend classes, and it has disrupted some of the university services. What we have found out at Walden University, which is one of the Adtalem institutions, is that we have still been able to receive electronically credentials from institutions in Nigeria. And they are actually answering inquiries. If you have any question about a document that a student may have sent you, whether that's something that actually did come from that school, you can reach out to them. I have contact information for several Nigerian institutions. If somebody wants to email me after this is over, you're welcome to shoot me a message. I'll pop my email address into just a moment. But yes, there is an ongoing strike, and it's with the staff, the University Staff Association. I can't remember the exact name of the association within Nigeria itself.
Thanks for confirming that. Oh, and Rachel, I just saw that you put a link in the chat with probably
Oh,
more
cool,
than-
thanks.
Yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate that. I also asked, or I saw, excuse me, that Matthew asked for the registration link, and Julia dropped that in there in the chat as well. And for those viewing virtually or the recorded version, I wanted to mention Q had asked a great question in here and Shelby answered. So I'm just going to read it aloud for recording's sake. And it looks like we're actually all out of Q&A questions, so keep them coming. We have about 9 minutes left. But Q was asking, has anyone ever been in a situation where a student said they can't provide a scratch card? One of the reasons I received is that they have graduated a long time ago. Should we accept WASSEC if they don't provide a scratch card that we can verify? And Shelby answered, oh yeah, it usually is not true, as the verification goes back for a few decades. When we push back and say that you must provide written proof directly from WAEC, then, shocker, good one, we suddenly get a scratch card, or the prospective student stops communicating with us altogether. So, awesome. And thanks for dropping your email in the chat, Shelby. This is also a really great opportunity to network with people who are doing the exact same work as you guys. And we are kind of at a lull with questions, but I do want to leave guys, my internet just dropped. My computer just completely froze. I'm really sorry about that. I'm not sure. Yeah, it's unstable internet. Thank you. I'm so sorry about that. I totally lost my face. I just shut down completely. Let's see where that chat is. If I can reopen it, I apologize. Can everybody hear me? Drew, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Thank you for that. I'm so sorry for the interruption. So we do have another question in here. An anonymous attendee was asking, I know this webinar did not cover India, but our institution is being swamped with Indian applicants. Will there be an India-specific session? The amount of fraud that we are finding is also a lot. Is everyone mostly requiring West or other NAACS evaluations from India?
There was a great session, which unfortunately I didn't get to attend because I was already heading to the airport at the ACRO annual meeting. Leslie Clausen-Eicher, who's not with us today's meeting, was a co-presenter along with Dave Mahali, who I don't think is with us today either. They've shared their PowerPoint. Dave sent me some notes when I told him that I didn't get to be there. But basically they're looking at the significant changes that are coming up soon in the Indian educational system. But the questioner has posed something that's more, does not have to do with those changes, and that is the problems with fraud and so forth. That's usually always handled at most all ACRO Institute sessions, or even a transfer session like at Tech Transfer. But generally speaking, there are countries out there where fraud is of a higher percentage than India. I'm surprised if you're getting much in the way of forgeries from India. It could be just simply that we're getting such a high volume from India, and so inevitably it causes the incidence of fraud to rise. In my experience, I've always felt that fraud is not as prevalent, around the world as we sometimes make it out or scare new folks into thinking. I put it at 3%, maybe something along those lines. But depending on the country, that percentage leaps up in some instances. But India never has impressed me as a place where there was a great deal of fraud. So we don't require verification tools as far as India is concerned. We do want to get the original document, of course, and look it over and make sure that it appears genuine. But fraud, to me, fraud is not as big a problem in India as it is in, say, neighboring Pakistan or some other places.
Awesome. Thank you, Robert. And I can see that Julia is also going to be typing out an answer, so keep an eye out for that written answer as well. And again, I'm so sorry about that technical difficulty. My computer just stopped. So
we're all working from home. Well, not all of us. Some of us are still working from home, and some of us are still having to deal with all of the things that go along with having home internet. I don't have an IT department here in my house. My coworker is really not helpful in that department. But one of the things that can be really helpful in those departments, we were talking a little bit earlier about University of Lagos and schools in Nigeria in general. When you have a question about if there's a strike going on or some student comes back, this is a great time that you can use our international activities listserv. That once you've reached out to the school and ask them directly what's going on, then you can use the international activities listserv to connect with your colleagues, and you can see if any of them have had a similar experience. One email will go out to everyone, but that first email should go directly to the school. You're trying to hit that office, go right to the primary source whenever you can, same as you would need to do when you were looking at documents, whenever you can go to that source. Shelby, I saw you popped on for a second. Is it a recipe or do you have something else to add?
No, I was going to tack on to what Robert had said about India.
Yeah.
I 100% agree with him that we very rarely see fraudulent documents from India. And when I do, it's typically a secondary credential. It's not a post-secondary or a higher education institution credential. What we tend to see more often is that we get credentials from institutions that are not recognized by the appropriate entity within India to offer a post-secondary credential, or we will see something that's very clearly listed as distance education that has not been authorized by the Distance Education Board or the Distance Education Council, depending on when the student was enrolled in the program. And the question then becomes, okay, what do we do with that? But yeah, we very rarely see fraudulent credentials from India.
I'd like to just chime in on that and echo what Shelby said. We also have work with an organization that's based in the UK. They're called Qualifications Check, and they serve to assist organizations like us and academic institutions with verification of academic documents. And we refer applicants to them when there's any issue where they say, I can't get you my original or official documents. And so we ask them, well, go through this body, they will assist with the verification. And then they submit the verification report to us, and they will confirm whether the documentation is valid or not legitimate and so forth. With India, we also work with 2 other organizations, third-party platforms that serve as a hub for transmission of academic documents. I think one's called True Copy or True Transcripts. Sorry, you can email me later and I can give you more details. And worldwide transcripts, and they're both government approved in India. So, and as Shelby said, the problem we have is with those that don't carry accreditation when they're at the post-secondary level.
And one last comment from the Director of International here at ACRO. If you do find an increase in fraud, you may want to do some research on whether the fraud is emanating from a particular source, a particular region, or maybe even a particular agent. See if you can pinpoint where that's coming from. But that's pretty much all the time that we have for today. Christina, anything to wrap up?
I was gonna address Susan's question real quick, if you guys don't mind giving another 2 minutes, because you are right. I think that Julia's comment really touches on trying to find patterns. And I wanted to shout out a recent publication that ACRO put out, Bogus Institutions Guide, that was released, I believe, 3 or 4 months back ago, but that will help kind of go through understanding more about fraud and where it can be found, patterns to recognize. But yeah, we will leave it at that. Thank you guys so much for joining us and for being with us today. We hope that you guys continue the conversation by engaging with your EDGE subscription, joining our international activities listserv, as well as subscribing to our ACRO Connect newsletter. And with that, we wish you guys all a fantastic rest of your month. Thank you to the panelists. And again, thank you everybody for attending. We'll see you guys next time.
Submit
Thank
those
you.
questions with documents, redacted, of course. Protecting student
Thank you,
privacy is of paramount importance.
This is true. Thank you guys. Take care.